Who on the C-suite has the accountability goals around DEI? What are they? What are the top 3 things you're working to change right now? And how do you know when you're like, how do you know where you are on that progress? So I think that piece is really, really important. Like, I don't know any companies that run their marketing team with a group of volunteers, no budget, and no measurable goals. Like, we just don't do that because we know it's important. So, but a lot of organizations do that with DEI.
You're listening to the Global Inclusion in Practice podcast, sharing the stories of DEI changemakers around the world. Vivian Aqua and Marjolein Vlug bring you behind-the-scenes stories and kitchen table conversations about the personal perspectives of DEI professionals, representatives, advocates, and allies, talking about what matters in this work and what sustains us in creating lasting change. There are many of us working on creating a more inclusive world. Let's share our stories. We're in this together.
Welcome, Tara Robertson, to the Global Inclusion in Practice podcast. And we are not just excited, but beyond excited. This is a fangirl talking, so mind me if I'm fanning. It's okay. But I want to learn more about you. So I'm asking you, would you like to introduce yourself to our listeners? Who are you now? But also, who are you professionally and personally as well?
Who am I now? It's 7:09 a.m. On the west coast of Canada in Vancouver, where I'm at. I'm slightly caffeinated, but I'm super excited to be here and in conversation with you too. I feel very awake. Professionally, I'm a couple things right now. I'm a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategist. I work with companies to use data to diagnose what's going on and to help make things better in a lasting, sustainable way. And I'm also a leadership coach. I primarily serve women of color to be more unapologetic and wildly successful in their careers. And then sometimes white people reach out to me and they go, I really vibe with you, but I'm not a woman of color. Would you coach me? And it's like, absolutely. Like, so I say women of color, the center of my universe, but I serve lots and lots of people.
Yeah. When you're inclusive, you're inclusive.
Yeah. And I plant a stake for women of color.
May I ask why? Of course I know, but maybe the listeners are listening to this and they are wondering, okay, but why is she advocating for women of color?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. First of all, I am a woman of color. I know, and I've experienced, and I know all the research, how the world was not designed for us. So there's lots of systemic exclusion. So like the one size fits all, this works for all professionals. It doesn't necessarily work for us because we're not included in that. Second, coaching is a profession dominated by white women. My previous career was in librarianship. I was a librarian for 12 years. Also a profession dominated by white women. And that has a certain flavor. I'm a coactive coach, so we think about who we're being in the world as well as what we're doing. So integral to who I'm being is a woman of color. And for my clients, that's also the case. It's not like we can separate our identity. So I make up that people of color and women of color who are coaches, we coach a little differently. And whatever anyone's identity is, like if you're a person with disabilities, if you're Black, if you are Indigenous, like if you're queer, all of those things are integral to who you are and how you move in the world. So of course it's going to impact how you coach.
As in seeing through.
You said you had an idea. Like what were your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts of working with a coach and myself being a coach, right? I look beyond people saying yes and no. I look into their body language and also the way that they say things, right? There is an undertone or a current that people of color have where if you are not aware of that cultural sensitivity, cultural intelligence, that you will always stay above the surface. And as a coach, you will need to be able to dive deep. You will need to be able to understand that there goes more than meets the eye. Thinking of Transformers right now, but it's literally that way when it comes to coaching people of color. And I'm also proud to and glad to admit that Marjolein coached me for a while. In the beginning, I was a bit like, okay, but how can she coach me? But I know the amazing woman that Marjolein is, and that she is ready to dive deeper than beyond what most people that I know of Western background or being white know how to do. So I applaud Marjolein, and I'm grateful for her to do that.
Thanks. Thanks for saying that.
I've had white coaches who are amazing. And what I've heard from a lot of my clients is that their previous experiences with coaching has just been the cheerleading, like, yay, you can do it. And on an individual level, there is a piece around that. Like having someone cheer you on is powerful. It's not the whole thing, though. Without a systems analysis about sexism and racism, you're missing part of it. And there's also the kick in the ass and the accountability bit. And many white women are not comfortable holding Black, Indigenous, and women of color accountable.
Or other white women. I mean, being nice is a thing for white women.
So for me, my most powerful coaches have been like the warm hug and the kick in the ass. And I think our clients deserve that.
Yep.
They deserve the kick in the ass. Okay, I'll hand it over to you, Marjolein.
Do I deserve a kick in the ass? Is that what you mean? But that's true. It's both of those things and more. That's the beauty of coaching. What's an essential thing that you would like for our listeners to know about you, to remember about you even?
I think earlier in my life and career, I was really frustrated and angry around injustice. And where I'm at now, I want to build. So I want to build the future with people. And I say I want to make equitable futures irresistible. Like I want it to be so juicy and delicious. Like how could you want anything else? So if people knew me when I was younger and it was more like, burn it all down, I want to build with them now. And I think some things we need to burn down selectively, but we also need to be thinking, and what are we building next? I don't want to, the future that I imagine is rich and beautiful and looks very different than what we have today. But if we just knock everything down right now, we're just going to be standing in a pile of rubble, and that's not it either.
Yeah, it's going to look better in a good way, not in a rubble way.
And if you look at your individual specific perspective on DEI and DEI work, what is that per se?
I think about the work I do with corporate leaders and organizational leaders. There's that kick in the ass piece as well. Like we measure things that matter and we hold ourselves accountable or we set organizational goals for things that are important. So if that piece is missing with an organization, I don't think they're serious about DEI. Everyone will tell me DEI is very important here. It's very important to us. And I was like, who on the C-suite has the accountability goals around DEI? What are they? What are the top 3 things you're working to change right now? And how do you know when you're like, how do you know where you are on that progress? So I think that piece is really, really important. Like, I don't know any companies that run their marketing team with a group of volunteers, no budget and no measurable goals. Like, we just don't do that because we know what's important. So, but a lot of organizations do that with DEI. So it's like, So I guess I'd ask people to think and be honest. Like, if you want to change something, either as a coachee or as a company leader, you need to think really honestly, actually, do I want to change this? And if so, like, where am I at and where am I trying to go? DEI is change management.
Is that the kick in the butt or is it something else?
It's a kick in the butt is part of it, but part of it is like understanding where you want to go and why. So with a lot of white corporate leaders in the last few years, there's been a lot of crisis management, like, oh no, this thing happened in the world. What do I say? Initially, I was thinking really tactically with those leaders, but with my coaching skills, the question's like, who are you as a leader and who do you want to be in this situation? Like, do you want to be courageous? Do you want to be loving? Do you want to be authentic? Like, who do you want to be? And from that place, figure out what you want to do. Like, rather than kind of remember the 10 tactical things you need to say during Pride Month or the 10 things you should not do during Black History Month. Like, who do you want to be? And then let it flow from there. It'll be more authentic. You don't need to memorize the lists and you get to grow as a leader.
Then comes the question to me, because you're bringing the coaching element aspect in it, where how have you grown before you started with the coaching training, after the coaching training, with adding it in your DEI practice, right? Yeah.
Oh, wow. Like, I facilitated for one of my coaching clients yesterday. She was she's standing up a new team at work, and we did an offsite to kind of just set the tone and set the container for their work. And I'm much more comfortable bringing the emotion now. One woman said she felt like the space was sacred, and I was able to really hold a lot for them to process. And I think I would have, well, I know I was more in my head and needing to prove myself with my credentials and the data and the research. Those things are important, but like there's more too. Like our spiritual selves, our ancestors, the land that we're on, whatever religious or spiritual practices we have, like that's part of who we are. The wisdom that our bodies have, and like our intuition, and like the messages that we feel like when we walk into a room and you're like, something just happened here. Like for me, my body picks up on that way before my brain does. And then the heartbeats for me, like the emotional intelligence and both of like the other people, but myself, like, it's like, does this feel right? Like, am I in alignment, like on an emotional level? I can catch things that are off at a heart level before my brain catches up. Like my brain's really powerful, but it's the slowest part. It's been driving the bus.
It's good, but it's not that fast.
Yes, love that. Thank you.
I'm curious because people that don't know you might have an impression. I certainly have an impression, and people that do already know you will have an impression of this. But I wonder, how would you describe your flavor, your work as a person?
Oh, my flavor. I'm curious. What's your impression?
No, I ask you first. I know you're a coach. You're going to ask questions, but and
What's my flavor?
I'll tell you after.
Like, there's some spice. Yeah, I'm like, oh, what are the words? I don't even know. I'm a little spicy, but I can move the range from like one chili pepper up to about 5 chili peppers.
Yeah, you have
I
range.
really care about this. Like, this is kind of, I feel really on purpose on this is the work that I'm here to do in this life. And looking around, like, the world there's a lot that's wrong right now. And so it really kind of, I don't have a ton of hope. So thinking about the changes that I can help make in the world and work with other people to make, like that gives me hope. That phrase, hope is a practice. What is it? I'm getting the words wrong, but it's like when you don't have hope, coming back to it and looking for hope and doing work that incremental work, showing up to do that, the consistency and the discipline. It's that, but I'm not sure what that is as a flavor.
Well, to me, it's a deep and rich flavor, and it's layered, and in terms of a dish, it's a thoughtful dish. It's something that you put a lot of love in. It's not fast food. Yeah, there's some
Why,
spice.
Marjolein? Why do we, or why are
Why?
we talking about
Because
food?
because we talk about food all the time. You are the why, Vivian.
Yeah. For me, how I see you is you're bringing your full self, your wholesome self into the DEI game. And it starts with you showing up with your hair. That's what I notice. It starts with you with your amazing eyewear. It starts with you providing a language that is constructive, where you bring the spice, but you are always constructive, and you tell people like it is. And like you said in the beginning, that being a coach is not only about being a cheerleader, it's also being able to turn the mirror around and show them what you see. And if they see the same thing, and if they don't see the same thing, then you're helping them in their journey to see what they want to see, right? So that's how I see you.
Wow. Thank you for holding up the mirror, both of you. The telling the hard truth is something I tell on with my clients when we start working together. That's something that's really hard for me. I think it has to do with how I was socialized as an Asian woman and Canadian. Like, we keep everything nice, but if you have courage in your teeth and I can see it and I don't tell you, like, that's not kind. So building trust, but also me explicitly committing to say the truth even when I'm uncomfortable, that's honesty for me. And I'm much more able to do that in the corporate DEI space and to do it with love than I was before I started on my coaching journey. I was able to do it, but sometimes it was too late or it came out really harsh. But my promise to people is I will always say the hard truth and I will do it with love.
Yeah. And you're human, right? People seem to forget that doing the DEI work makes you the all-knowing, makes you the almighty, makes you a person that never makes mistakes. But just an FYI for those who are listening, we're human. So we'll have our biases. We'll have our things that we do that acquires a growth mindset so that we can learn from the lessons that we have endured too. Yeah. What about this work is so important to you? Because what is the calling that made you jump into this with your full self, with your whole heart?
I think people think in 2020, there was a huge influx of new people in the DEI space, which was a good thing.
I'm one of those
And
people, to be honest. So continue.
organizations hired a lot of Black and Brown people who had maybe nonprofit experience or education experience, but they didn't have the corporate experience. So in a lot of ways, I think those people were not set up for success. There's more to DEI than just having passion and lived experience. There's like the change management, there's the internal comm strategy, there's the being able to execute on projects that are across many different departments. It's more than just being passionate and having lived experience. There's a lot of kind of other practical skills that you need, I think, to be effective. And it's an interesting space because there isn't a formal credential. And I'm not actually a fan of the DEI certification programs that are out there. I think Cornell is a big one. Stanford's got one. They're organizations that haven't done diversity, equity, and inclusion well themselves. So I don't really think they're in a place to be to be experts.
That's an interesting take that you have there, because that's my thought exactly, where they are providing, these high training, very expensive training, and then you get a credential, and then what, right?
And then we've got people who can afford an expensive credential, or we have Black and Brown people who might have a master's in psychology or organizational development who are not recognized or who are not legible in organizations. So then they go and spend $6,000 at Cornell or however much it is to get the name there. And it's like, it felt opportunistic, like an opportunistic cash grab to me. Not just Cornell, but all of the programs. So it's not like you can have a specific education background or a specific work history that it's like, oh, this person's going to be a good DEI leader. And yeah, I think it's kind of good in some ways, but then there's also some drawbacks. What about in Europe? What's the situation around DEI jobs and who is qualified?
Shall I? I've applied for a few DEI job roles, and oftentimes it's because I don't have a university degree, or they don't see how they can fit somebody who is neurodivergent, who does a lot and is doing a lot. They cannot fit me in a box. And I do see it. I'm talking about the Netherlands right now, but I do see DEI roles being more active than ever. I do see more job roles in different countries within Europe, but there's also a part of Europe where DEI is not really lived, right? There are countries in Eastern Europe where they are criminalizing being gay, for instance. Just right now, I just before our call, I just read that the Netherlands also want to there are some parties in the Netherlands that want to reverse transgenders for changing their sex or changing their identity. Yeah. And we are very progressive. Yeah. Until you can see that there is a polarization storm being run over the world, especially in Europe and in the US and Canada as well, where you're seeing a different lead. But luckily, there are companies out there that still believe and see value of creating a competitive edge with DEI.
So when you're seeing developments in the world, Tara, and you're seeing things up close in your life, what are things that you cannot tolerate?
The pendulum kind of swinging back legislatively in the US and in Canada in some places around transgender rights and trans people's access to healthcare, like access to abortion for women. It just, I can't tolerate that. I can't tolerate the state exercising power to limit people's humanity and control over their bodies.
What can you tolerate?
It's tough. I've been thinking a lot about this. I'm in Canada, but the US election impacts us all. And I'm close to a very loud neighbor. A woman, Jane Finette, who I used to work with, has started kind of a new project around how do we talk across difference and how do we talk to people we don't necessarily agree with politically. And it's really interesting, that space for me. So when we hosted the Coaches Barbecue, which was like a global coaching on conference, I forget her name. She shared a really excellent resource around how to talk across difference around what's going on in Israel and Palestine. And I think those spaces are really tricky. They're very, very polarized. Like it's very, very hot, and there's not a lot of middle ground. And for me, what I'm seeing happen in Palestine is absolutely a genocide. And how can I talk to people and hear their perspective and hopefully influence them to see what I see if I'm not even willing to get into a conversation? And then checking myself as I get into that conversation, it's like, am I actually open and listening right now? Or am I waiting for the point to kind of put my point in? And I'd like to be the person who is, can listen and be curious at all times. I'm not right now. So I'm just trying to think, how do I need to grow to help shift things in the world? Or is that even the right way? I'm not sure. Like, I'm not sure if someone's like, women should not have access to abortion. Like, I'm not sure how to enter that conversation. And by not entering it, like, what am I giving up? Sorry, Vivian, go ahead.
No, I was just thinking about sometimes these tough topics, right? I don't engage with them on social media because it's challenging how people will interpret what I mean, right? I would rather have a one-on-one conversation so that I can explain things in a conversation, not a discussion, not a debate, a conversation. And there are a lot of tough topics active at the moment right now. If it's not the president election, then it's the whole women thing where if a woman is, let's say if a woman is in a bad situation and she ends up pregnant, that she is not allowed in Arizona to remove it, only when her life is in danger. And that to me is, who gave you the right to decide about what I do with my body?
I totally agree. Like, social media is not the place for nuanced conversations, but for people who are listening right now, I think our families, the dinner table is a place where we can wade into that. And it feels like the stakes are high, and maybe it's too high for you right now, but who are the people in your life who love you and are open to being in conversation with you? And can you enter those conversations about anti-racism, about abortion rights, about genocide, about trans people's rights? Like, where are you willing to enter those conversations, and how can you do it so that we can shift the world. Like us avoiding the conversations and not having them, it's not working. Fighting online with people with snappy one-liners, that's not it either. Like, where in your life do you have some influence and are willing? Because it's hard to enter those conversations, but where could you try?
Yeah, and it seems like how to have those conversations is something that you and me and a lot of people that feel like they want to make these changes are trying to figure out how to have those conversations, how to have a conversation with someone who's running away, actually, who's trying to punch you in the face in a metaphorical sense. Because it's not always that, these are people that are open to having a conversation with you. So it's also about creating the space to have the conversation at all and then having it constructively. I think that's a huge, huge learning and growth challenge that we're seeing right in front of us, that we're right in the middle of, and that we're seeing as one of the possible solutions and ways forward.
I'll find the resource after. I'd love to share it so you can share it in the show notes. It's excellent. And I reading it, I was like, huh, okay.
Yeah. And that's in workshops and work situations as well as at home. Just at the dinner. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Vivian Aqua, the certified DEI consultant, and I would like to invite you to take your organization to the next level of understanding by collaborating with me. I specialize in helping organizations amplify their DEI initiatives and foster an inclusive environment. Reach out today to learn how I can help your organization unleash its hidden potential and create a culture of belonging.
Looking at what you'd have done so far, and you have done a lot, what are you proud of and why? People should see your face. Your face is lighting up because of this. I'm curious.
This would be an easy place for me to list some of my resume accomplishments, but I'm not going to do that. I have a tattoo on my forearm of a lit match. And for me, it's got a couple of meanings. It's about, we got to take things to action. But when I was younger, I wanted to burn everything down. Like I was like, burn down the patriarchy, burn down white supremacy. And I think I'm most proud of how this work and this journey and all the people I've met along the way have shifted me to be a little softer and strong in that softness as well. And to think about the what are we building next piece. So the unlearning that I've done, learning to give myself and others grace, that's still a work in progress. Dialing down the judgment is still a work in progress. But I'm proud I've put down some of my armor. And I think it takes a lot of courage. It takes more courage when you don't have the armor on to just enter a conversation and be like, I'm here. I'm fully here. Let's get to work.
What makes it a work in progress?
I am so judgmental. I catch myself judging things and people all the time. I don't think it's ever going to be a place where I'm completely non-judgmental, but I'd like the practice of noticing it has been really humbling. And not all judgments are bad, but I'd like to be more open-minded with people I don't agree with.
That's a challenge.
And thanks for saying this out loud. I mean, I can assume all kinds of things, but I can ask and invite you to say it out loud because we're all human. So am I. What is a challenge that you are currently eager to take on?
This is like I'm surprising myself at how personal the answers are, but as a coach, I take a stand for my clients' wholeness and for like the thing that they're stepping into. So I'm realizing, and maybe just selfishly, I want that for myself. So one of the things that feels kind of like a big 70s metal gray filing cabinet in the corner, I've kept part of my career history hidden. And there's a bit of shame around that. So I want to claim that, and I want to claim that here. So before I worked in DEI, I was a librarian. And before that, I was a sex worker for off and on for 10 years. And I've been scared to say that because we live in a pretty sex negative culture. Well, in the Netherlands, I'm not sure, but
Yeah.
It's not what it used to be in the 70s.
not what it used to be. But I think around judgment, I've been afraid that people would judge me and diminish my DEI skills and knowledge. But in doing that, then I'm kind of doing that to all sex workers, aren't I? Like being like, that's not serious. And I've been thinking a lot as a coach, like some of the pieces around being with a client. So many clients say, I've never said this out loud to anyone before. And I have a lot of experience with that phrase and that experience with clients as a sex worker. It's an intimate space you're holding with your client. And to be able to be present and be with that and be with your client to witness them is really powerful. And I was like, oh, I have this muscle from a different time in my life. Like it's applicable here.
You've always had that muscle. You had it there. You had it as a sex worker. You had it as a librarian. You have it as a coach. You have it as a DEI consultant.
But I think the sex work part of my career means it got really strong. Like I'm doing CrossFit 3 or 4 times a week, and I'm just the consistency. I'm like, oh, like my body is stronger. Like when you use a muscle and you train it, it gets strong. And I think sex workers have certain soft skills that are really honed, both for our safety, but also for the client experience. And we don't talk about that a lot in the formal kind of professional work sphere. Vivian, I'm just thinking about how you were discounted in DEI roles because you don't have a university degree and you're neurodivergent. And it's like, what are we missing out when we don't? We're missing out on a lot.
They're missing out on a lot of flavors, a lot of things, and also what you were sharing, like all these skills that you have gained throughout your whole career makes you, makes you valuable, makes you impactful. And that's what people are missing because they base me just on a CV and maybe they see my name or see my face where they're like, she's a troublemaker.
You are sometimes, but in a good way, and you have range. You're so
Thank
much
you,
more.
Marjolein.
I can't tell anyone you're not, but in all good time. And so is Tara, and so am I.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so are a whole
Because
lot
we're
of
compliant all the time. Like we're not making the impact we need to make.
True. What would you like to explore when you look towards maybe 5 to 10 years?
It's funny, my wife is 55 and she's thinking about how do I retire? What does that look like? I'm younger than her, so I love this work and I might not be working as much in 10 years, but like if she's going biking all day and doing fun things, I don't want to be in front of a computer all day, but what I love about this work is I'm always learning and I'm such a curious person who loves to learn. So what is DEI going to be like in 10 years? I don't know. Is the work going to be done? No. And what is leadership coaching going to look like? I don't know either, but I know it's going to be interesting. I'm going to be able to learn and also continue to make change in the world.
what looks juicy to explore.
What did you say?
What looks juicy to explore? It could be all kinds of things, but what can you see that really looks juicy?
10 years from now, like all of it. Like my work is so interesting because I get to work with interesting people who are trying to change things. So, and whether that's their life, their career, their relationships, or their 1,000-person company, like that's interesting. And even if it's the same problem, the context is different. So it's not the same problem. I think if I find myself where I'm not learning and growing, that'll be a sign that I need to step back and reassess things. Where do you two see yourself in 10 years?
I didn't expect that question.
You invited a coach.
Oh, I see myself. Wow. I have a son. He's 10 right now, so he'll be 20. And I hope that that he's proud of his mom, but also that as a mother, I've done the best that I can do to support companies with creating a virtual soil for DEI and move it on forward. Because here in Europe, we are further behind than the US, where certain conversations are not being had, like talking about race, talking about racism, talking about all the things that Europe has done in the past that causes exclusion for a lot of people who are part of a minority, community. So I hope that by that time that the different generation that is growing up now is ready to have a conversation, not a debate, not a discussion, conversation where we respect each other at the end. Marjolein?
10 years from now, I'm gearing up to up-level my leadership in different ways. And I hope to be doing more of what I do now in terms of how I show up. And now currently I show up as a coach. My flavor, with my style, with kindness, with interest, with kicks in the butt, with intuition, expanding that, but also leadership around the things I care about. A leader that people follow, a leader that people partner with, a leader that serves by sensing things and naming things, and a leader by supporting how others show up. That I didn't fully make that up. That's a model and that's a theory that I used when I just said that, and that I fully believe in. I fully believe that leadership shows up in all of those ways, and I am actively working on showing up more as a leader in all of those ways. And in 10 years, that's where I hope to be, as, someone who creates impact from there in a kind and thoughtful way. Not nice, but kind. Not rash, but thoughtful. Actionable.
Can we make a date for 10 years? So it would be 20.
I'll put a reminder in my phone right now.
2034, and we can get together and be like, so how's it going?
That's a good idea. Making it a time capsule. Yeah.
Hey, are you ready to rediscover focus, clarity, and resilience so that you can be a stronger change maker for diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging? I am Marjolein Vlug. I'm a certified coach. And whether you're getting started in DEI or are further along in your journey, I can support you to take your work to the next level. With me as your ally, you can gain clarity on your next initiatives or career goals, make intentional choices, stay accountable to them, deal with the intensity of the work, and create real change. Let's talk. I'd love to learn more about you. Reach out to book a chat.
I have a very different question about you again. Flipping it back to you, Tara. What do you need for you right now, in general, going forward? What do you need?
I've been blown away. Like, community is one of my values, but community's always been everything. But like this year, community's been so important. I'm part of a leadership community that's doing a program together. That community really supports, challenges, inspires me. My CrossFit community, who I see at 6:30 in the morning, like, I don't think we would have met each other anywhere else in the world. I love them, and knowing that I'm going to see them, they inspire me, and we celebrate each other. Some communities I'm part of, like, where deep healing has happened. One of my big realizations this year is, like, healing can happen at an individual level, but we need to heal in community as well. And there's things that are possible in community that are not possible on your own. So I need, and I think I have community and communities, I guess, that I'm a part of. And I think on LinkedIn, we're part of a community of like-minded people who are talking asynchronously about diversity, equity, and inclusion, about anti-racism, about leadership, about self-leadership. So I feel like we're part of a network as well. Like, and our ideas build on each other and we inspire each other and also like interrogate each other. Like, we can't do these things alone.
And what else? Because I just asked, but you weren't ready. You were still adding more. What else do you need?
You're so coachy. It's like, what's it? And I was like, oh no, that's not.
So are you.
When I heard the question, I was thinking about like, what do I need externally? But what's coming up for me is there's a lot of things that I need internally. I'm also on a journey to trust my body more, which is also trusting myself more. The piece about giving myself grace. So like letting go of perfectionism, letting go of being compliant and this love and like leaning into love and all the different layers of that and being more comfortable expressing that with friends and people I'm in community with. And then my word this year is pleasure. I brought some resources that I thought are interesting, and Adrienne Marie Brown, Pleasure Activism, jumped off of my bookshelf to me. And part of it is around like the somatic pleasure. Like if it doesn't feel good at a body level, I don't want to do it. So that's not shying away from physical challenges or stretching myself at the gym, but it's more about, I used to want to fight to get into rooms and be seen, and that didn't feel good. So sometimes I need to fight to get into places, but I'd rather go into places where I'm invited and do good work with people in those spaces. That feels good. It feels good not to overextend myself at work. It feels good to like be in my body and be connected to people and be connected to nature. Like that feels good.
Well, I'm glad I asked, and mainly thank you for going there. Thank you for showing up with this.
Initially, I was like, what do I need? Like, it's like thinking about external things, and it's like, no, they're all internal things, which I'm like, oh, is that selfish to say? And it's like, oh, whatever.
We need self-care, right? We need self-care. Doing the work, it's already challenging enough. And one of the things that you mentioned before is having a conversation with your loved ones. And it immediately reminded me of a conversation that Marjolein and myself had with our partners. We interviewed them about the impact of DEI in our household, but also what they think and how they are passing the baton on in creating the space that we are advocating for ourselves. So thank you. And I am curious about who you are becoming, because you shared where you are, what you are proud of, but I'm also curious
And where
about
you've
who are
been.
you becoming? Yeah.
It feels like I'm on a threshold of some big change, and like on the threshold, but I don't know what it is. But I'm becoming a more authentic, more liberated, freer, more joyful version of myself.
Which brings me a curiosity, and I hope that it's okay to share something. So my roots are Ghanaian, and Ghanaian are known for being humble and silent. And I wasn't sure about your roots, but you said Asian, where I see you, but I see also you being different than what people could assume of Asian people, if you get what I'm saying. And were you always like that, or was a shift? And if there was a shift, then what made you become so vocal and so visible, given the fact that Asian people and Ghanaian people, well, they are known for, let's say, sitting in the back. waiting on other people to say their word, and maybe they'll say something. Yes,
Tara's
exactly
making
that.
herself small and cute right now. You can't see it because this is a podcast, but
I'm mixed race, so my mom's Japanese Canadian and my dad's white of Scottish and Irish ancestry. So like for about the first 25 years of my life, I was like, where's home? And in university, I did a semester in Scotland. In high school, I went to Japan. I went there after my undergrad. Neither place are home for me. Like I'm big, like I'm tall, strong, fat, and I'm brown. Like I don't look necessarily Asian, but I was raised to be kind of quiet and compliant and good and I can do those things, but that's not who I am. I've always been loud and opinionated. Yeah. And there's been a lot of friction around that, both in my family, in myself, and in my career. And I've had lots of white people mostly tell me, who do you think you are? Like you're being too big for your britches. You need to pay your dues first. You need to blah, 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 blah. And it's like maybe that's what you chose to do, but I'm not choosing that.
And is standing up for yourself being loud and obnoxious? No, right? You're standing up for yourself.
No, it's just claiming the right size that you are. But I think in a lot of systems, women of color get penalized for that. It's like you're being too much. You're not being professional enough. Like keeping my hair multicolored and shaved on the side, it just gives me joy. I like how it looks. I think it's cute. But also the idea that I need to dye my hair and make myself smaller and more boring to fit into someone's professional space. Like, no, I reject that.
That's funny. The reason why I say funny is underneath my hair is supposed to be half shaved, but half of my hair is half shaved. And ever since becoming a freelancer or entrepreneur and doing this work, I decided to let my hair do the screaming. Thank you.
What's your path been like as a Ghanaian woman to
What's my?
what, like, implied in that question, I'm hearing that you were raised to be sort of quiet and humble and sit at the back for other people to speak for you. What's your path been like to be this fabulously sovereign leader?
It's not easy. It's still not. And to some Ghanaian people, I'm a black sheep. But the fact that I'm having this conversation with you and asking you to share your dirty laundry and me sharing my dirty laundry is something. And I had to unlearn a lot, really unlearn a lot, and understand that I can be Dutch, I can be Ghanaian, but most of all, I'm Vivian. And when I became a mom, it took me a while, but when I became a mom, I realized that it's done. I'm done with filling in somebody else their boxes, and also realizing at a later age, now that my son is 10, we are recently on a discovery of us both being neurodivergent, and now it makes sense why I do the way I do and how I drive and how I roll. It didn't make sense to a lot of people, and I masked myself, and now I'm not doing that anymore. And I wish I had known that earlier. But now I'm just like, well, you can't see me. Marjolein knows that I'm very tall, but I'm 6'1". So people can maybe think to say something, but I don't often get that harsh remarks. And I know that my friends who are smaller do get them. And I'm also in a space where I don't need your approval to be me. Just like Beyonce, right? You have a right to mute her, to not listen to her, or you do listen to her and see the value of what she's doing at the moment right now. Whether you like her or don't like her, she's setting a certain tone that so many people should learn from her when it comes to claiming your space, a space where you also belong in. Who became God and decided that country is only for white people? Nobody.
I also feel there's a network effect, like when us as individuals take a stand for ourselves and like who we are, it creates space for other people to do the same. I don't know how it works. Maybe it's some kind of physics thing, but
Mirror neurons, I don't know, it works. Yeah.
Yeah,
but I
definitely.
also realize, like on a strategy level, I'm fighting for systemic inclusion for other people and for other people to be able to take a full breath. But I wasn't allowing myself that. And it's like, there's a misalignment here. I want that for all of us.
That's the whole point, in a way. I'm gonna take this and segue right into our penultimate question, which there's Beyonce, there's the book you just held up, and I'd love to learn a bit more about it. Adrienne Marie Brown, what do you recommend that we all read, listen to, watch, read more, look at?
I brought 3 books to share. So first, Elaine Lynn Herring's Unlearning Silence, How to Speak Your Mind, Unleash Talent, and Live Life More Fully. It just came out a couple weeks ago. She's on book tour right now. I think she's in London today. She's amazing, and people should check out this book. And I think that connects to stuff we've said in this conversation about using our voice and speaking the truth. This book, Wendy McNaughton's How to Say Goodbye, she's an illustrator. She's an illustrator in the New York Times, and she did an artist in residence at a home where people go to die. What is the word for that?
Hospice?
And she witnessed people as at their end of life and drew their pictures, and some of the words she wrote, like they're just simple. Like this, sit in
What does
silence.
it say? Ooh, yeah.
So I think this is a beautiful book about death and grief and witnessing. And it's just beautiful. And this is the third one, the Afro Minimalist Guide to Living with Less. A colleague, Dr. Carrie Jordan, recommended it to me.
Who's
And
the
it's
author? I could see that.
Christine Platt is the author.
Christine Platt, thanks.
And she's looking through kind of the idea of decluttering our homes and our lives through an Afrocentric lens, where it's not just, does this spark joy? But knowing that our belongings and our spaces, it can be complicated. So bringing some kind of coaching questions and some different ways at looking at minimalizing your stuff, minimalizing how much money you're spending on stuff, but with a different lens that really lands with me. So 3 very different books, but when I looked at my bookshelf this morning, like, ooh, what do I want to share? I was like, doink, doink, doink. They just jumped out.
Was that cool? That was intuition. Yeah. I love the variety, and I was gonna say it's thoughtful, but it's intuitionful. And that's maybe even better right now. Thank you.
You can definitely see that you're a book reader. And there's another book nerd over there who's sitting
That's
next
me.
to me.
Yeah, Vivian is an audio person. So you have visual people, you have
Yeah.
book readers,
I
and
don't
you
actually
have
read a
audio.
lot. I read nonfiction. I don't read a lot of fiction, but I'm half book reader, half audiobook.
Now we can relate.
Yeah, I'm a fiction reader. I always feel bad about not reading enough nonfiction. So here you go. There's my there's my book critic.
Here's your dirty laundry.
We have come to the
Thank you
final
for a really
question.
real conversation.
Oh,
Sorry.
thank you for opening this space and also putting us on the hot seat, right? This is something that I wasn't expecting, but
Well, Vivian, this
yeah,
is season 2, Stakes have been raised.
definitely.
I hope we can all meet in person someday. Like maybe in 10 years, we'll meet up in person somewhere over a good meal and talk about, the things that we imagine for ourselves in 10 years and what's actually happened.
I hope so
But
too.
that and sooner too. I'm
I
hoping
hope
this
so
will be
too.
more than one meeting.
Final and last question. What is important for others to learn about DEI, what you haven't shared in the previous minutes?
I go back to my question about who do you want to be as a leader? Or who do you want to be as a citizen? Or who do you want to be as a parent? And then what do you need to do from there? What do you need to learn? I don't think it's a one size fits all. It's not 10 easy resources or 10 quick things. Like all of the work is needed. And the first step is figuring out like, what are my gaps? Where do I need to learn more? Where do I need to speak up more? Where do I need to step away? But start from that place about who you want to be.
Thank you so much for this thought-provoking but also heart-to-heart conversation. I really liked it, and I see Marjolein sitting there with big smiles.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hearts to heart to heart.
Yeah.
I hope you have a lovely night and yeah. Oh, my wife just let the dog in.
Ah,
Aw.
hi dog.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. You're warmly invited to pause for a moment and think about what stood out to you from this conversation. Please share this episode with others to inspire them too. Make sure to subscribe to our Substack channel. We'll be back soon with more episodes. Be well, take care, and stay connected.